Right, everybody. I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Memories of Us. And today we got Terina. Terina has an amazing story, and she's, oh my God, we was talking before. She's an amazing, intelligent individual. So hopefully you guys got your pens out and everything, because it's going to be full of a lot of good information and tools. And as always, you guys, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to serve you. Terina, how you doing today?
Doing so great. How are you, Tony?
I am doing well. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for taking your time out today and come and share your story with us. And yeah, so where are you from?
Arizona.
From Arizona. See, Arizona's hot. Arizona's hot. I got a horror story
See,
about Arizona
I
too.
am I am from northern Arizona. So
Oh,
I grew up having snow days from school, and where I'm from, it rarely gets up above 100. So it's a kind of a common misconception that all of Arizona is this hot desert, and in reality, it's very, very diverse within the state.
see, apparently I've been going to the wrong places. I've been going to the wrong place. I need to talk to my buddies whenever they tell me, hey, you want to go here? But like, you realize it's 114 degrees out there. There's no reason for all of that. People are spontaneous combustion, walking down the street, just no, there's no reason.
Open our car doors and it hurts our face because it's so hot. Yeah,
Oh, that just brought back memories. That truly just brought back memories. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you're doing right now.
So I have a really interesting and beautiful journey of getting here to where I am. And it starts with an invitation. My family and I were invited to see a pre-release screening of a children's movie.
Mhm.
And in the movie, there was a scene that I found deeply concerning. The main character, in order to complete his mission, had to allow his genitals to be examined and voiced his discomfort with this happening and was instructed how to endure the examination, to just go to his Zen place.
Mhm.
And then he could be the hero and save the day. And I found this deeply concerning. And my discomfort grew even more when we were discussing the movie. And my daughter cited that very scene as her favorite because it was so funny. And so then we had a nice conversation about body autonomy and good touch, bad touch, and tricky people. And that wasn't the first conversation of that type that I'd had, because as a survivor of child abuse, my biggest goal is to protect my children and empower them and their voices to be able to speak up and speak out and help prevent them from becoming victims. So I ended up writing an article about what I saw in the movie. And I shared that the lens through which I saw this was that of a survivor. And the article went viral in the most literal sense. Like within a week or two, my website had over 5 million views, and the article had been shared in countries around the world. And I was contacted by most major news and media outlet asking for interviews or quotes. And this resulted in the production company pulling the movie from theaters to be edited, which had never happened before for a children's movie.
Wow.
So this experience kind of demonstrated and gave me evidence of something that I had had whisperings of for quite a while,
Mhm.
that my life experiences and the lessons that I had learned were meant for more than just me, and they were greater than just me, and that my voice had power and that I could help people when I shared my story.
See, that is truly amazing because we all start from something, right? And now, the journey of getting there, you want to share a little bit about that? Because we did talk a little bit about that. Just so the audience get a better understanding of how you actually got into it. The article part, wow, that is truly amazing. Congratulations,
You?
Right. I've never seen that happen before, but that's truly amazing. And I was thinking, it was like that scene. I don't really remember seeing that anymore.
Yeah, you may not have seen the movie. There were several theaters that just pulled the movie from theaters. They didn't allow it to continue after the outcry. And I think there was one country even that was like, we're not going to let this to be released here. So in my article, I did not tell people don't go see the movie or go see the movie. My intent was just to inform parents the content was there and encourage them to have needed and impactful conversations about good touch, bad touch, and body autonomy. But you may not have seen it because a lot of people chose not to see it after they learned that it had content that really groomed children for sexual abuse.
See, that's crazy because I have a friend. I have a friend who was groomed at a very early age, at the age of 3, and so he was groomed, and it reminds me of that right there, you know, the good touch, bad touch thing, because now he goes out and he talks to young men who have been trafficked. And so relating to it, it's like, wow, did they really do that? Because that's exactly what that's grooming. Like,
That's exactly a technique that predators will use is to just tell kids basically it's disassociation, or it's a tactic children were used to kind of mentally check out from this scary, dangerous situation.
right,
And and certainly predators will tell you like it's not a big deal. This is just between us. We don't need to talk about it. Like, so it was really concerning to see that in a
right.
children's movie.
I can understand that because, and as a parent, I wonder how many other people saw it and didn't really pay no attention to it, or was it such a normalized thing, right? That, you know, we see the obvious and kind of, kind of blow it off because that's what everything looks like now, right?
Right. I remember talking to a friend who saw it, and she said, if you hadn't have said something, I would have watched it and I probably would have felt a little uncomfortable, but I wouldn't have known why. But
Right.
when you put those pieces together, it was very obvious. And so I think that's why it's important for those of us who stand as survivors to be able to embrace our voices and share our stories, is because not everybody sees things through the lens which we see things.
Now it's interesting that you say survivor. You and leading up into what we were just talking about earlier. Want to dive into that a little bit because I don't think people really understand, like, the surviving something so horrific as being groomed and trafficked and sexual assault and things like that. There's a whole set of grief that comes along with that because there's a loss of innocence. There's loss of self for the most part, trust issues, abandonment, all assault, all of those things. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Certainly. So I was raised in a home that where there was a lot of abuse. My dad has been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder. So there was a lot of chaos, violence, a lot of insecurity, and there was sexual abuse in our home. And so as you get older and you realize that's not normal, because part of a child is like you just think that this is normal and everybody's experience. And as you get older and you realize this isn't everybody's experience, and actually this is really, really damaging, and you began to do trauma healing and go down that journey, grief is a huge piece of that. And I know for me, there was a lot of sadness for the family that I didn't have. I'm the oldest of our family, so I'm the oldest of 7 children. So I played the role of second mom a lot. And so there was a lot of grief over the fact that I lost a lot of my childhood. Much of my childhood was spent caretaking other siblings or trying to protect other siblings. And I didn't get that carefree opportunity to just explore the world and be curious and discover about myself. What I was discovering was how to protect myself, not the world around me. I was discovering the world within my own 4 walls and how to survive in that situation.
Yeah. I know exactly what it's like to be trapped in your head, especially growing up trying to protect yourself. And man, I'm glad you survived it. I'm glad that you're here talking with us right now, because that is a lot to take in. And I can only speak from the perspective of mine, right? I've met so many young people now that are homeless who have left home just because of that, right? And the same thing that you said, and I love that you said, you have to learn how to survive yourself, right? You spend so much time protecting yourself that you forget that you are important, that, none of this stuff has nothing to do with you. And it sucks that it happened to you. And it's helping a person get pulled back out of that, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the hard work. And after talking with these young men and women that are out there homeless right now, a lot of them are still scared. You ever get that a lot where as we was talking about earlier, during the holidays, you smell something. Do you ever get, have that memory come back and have that flashback and get that sense of vulnerability again?
Yeah, absolutely. When you were speaking earlier, it really just brought to mind that there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen.
Yes.
When you're a child, you're learning how to protect yourself, but then those skills that you learned don't serve you as an adult and actually can be detrimental to your growth and your personal relationships, your family. And so you have to unlearn some of those things. And definitely PTSD, I know that's something that I've experienced. I actually, from my parents' house, moved in with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle is my dad's brother. And he's a great guy. We have a good relationship. But his voice is very, very similar to my dad's. Like, have you ever met siblings and they just sound just the same? Like my dad and my uncle, their voice sounds very similar. And this was before I had any understanding of PTSD. I didn't actually put the pieces together till years later when I learned about it. But I would babysit for them. And so there'd be times he'd call out for me and it would like wake me up. So like in the morning, I was going to be watching the kids for them or something. And immediately I'd have that physiological response. Like my heart is racing and I'm sweating and I'm like, I can feel the adrenaline pumping. And I'm sitting there as an 18-year-old going, why do I feel this way? Like all he did was say, hey, Terina, we're getting ready to leave. You can come up now. Why am I physically feeling scared?
Right.
As I learned about PTSD and these sensory connections, I learned that it was because his voice was so similar to my dad's that it triggered that physiological response that I would hear in association with my dad's voice. And so that's definitely something that I can relate to.
Yeah. Well, and is talking about PTSD, most people relate it to people being in the military, right? And I'm going, no, well, it goes a little bit deeper than that. I said you can have PTSD from many of things: traumatic childhood, traumatic adolescence, traumatic pre-adulthood, or adulthood, right? And it's a matter of how you perceive it at that moment, right? Because I know I still suffer from it. I have a hard time sleeping, and that comes from just years of just being in the gangs. And I actually was talking with a young man, actually an older guy, someone around my age, went through something similar. And I was, we were sitting back talking, just reminiscing about our childhood and being in the gangs and things like that. And when you're gang bangers, or ex-game bangers, it's kind of hard to find people that you can relate to that you really didn't get along with a long time ago. But to sit around and share these memories and these stories on common ground and respect each other without all the hatred and the violence, right? And to have a cordial conversation, become friends, become brothers, and go, man, we really got screwed up, didn't we? Yes, we did. But also the downside to the PTSD, I've seen some people not pull themselves out and get stuck in there. Then they get stuck in addiction and manipulating people because that's all they really know is how to survive. And I can relate to that. I think most of us that became grief workers or light workers or healers and things like that, the journey of getting there, becoming who we are. Like you said, we learn all of these different things, but then when we learned it, I kind of feel that it was replaced with something that was already there. Because I listen to you and everything just comes out so naturally, not just through the lived experience, because there's a lot more to that. A lot of it I kind of feel was already there, teaching you along the way, self-taught. You ever get that?
I do. Yeah. So, I had a faith deconstruction. And so my beliefs on some things are still really fluid and not very solid, but there's
Mhm.
definitely been moments where I felt like maybe I have an old soul that's already learned some lessons, and
Yeah.
that's helped me to navigate things a little bit more easily. So,
Yeah, that's a blessing too. I saw that. I was like, yep, somebody opened up the book. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Bill Ratner, and we was talking about, as a matter of fact, I had him on. He started interviewing me. I was like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. He was like, I just need to know, how did you? I was like, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I really don't. I just woke up one day when I decided to do this. I had no idea, right? I was like, I know nothing about this. I'm just watching people. And then when I went off into that little tunnel and just sat with my grief for a little bit, it's like somebody just opened up a book and said, this is what this is. And so I just became curious. That's honestly how I got into this. It was a thought that I didn't know if it was going to work.
I think curiosity can be our greatest teacher.
Yeah,
When we can get curious with our life experiences, curious with our emotions. What is this grief trying to teach me? What is this grief telling me? That's when we can take our experiences from something bad that's happened to us to a tool to use for our growth and our healing.
right. See, and I never knew that. I didn't know that those things that I was learning from when I was a child up into my adulthood, going into doing what I'm doing now, all of these experiences, I never knew that it was going to teach me what it did, right? And I'm sitting here and still of sane mind, right? Because there's a lot of times where I thought I was going crazy because I was like, there's no way, there's no way, right?
Well, I want to empower you for a second. You said that these things have taught you. And I don't, I don't, I don't always agree with that. I don't think that just experiencing something teaches you something. I think that you had the capacity and the desire to learn from that, and you used that experience to learn. I like to tell people take that power back. Like, you didn't learn from your abuse, you used your abuse as a teaching tool. Like, you take that power back. You own that. Like, you did that. There's people who go through those experiences and they don't learn those things. You
That's very
chose to.
true. Yeah, I love that because I just added to it now, and I totally agree. I mean, I guess we can look at it from a whole different um ways or scenarios, right? Because like you said, there's some people that go through it and they don't learn. Statistics with men, we tend to not deal with things, those emotions, right? And I've almost become a statistic because I was there. I almost took my own life, right? I've struggled in my faith, everything else. Thought I was going crazy, became homeless, made bad decisions. So my process of going through the grief, I didn't understand it. So I guess that's why I said it taught me, because I didn't understand it. I just knew where I was. It was a dangerous place for me because the fear was not there anymore. The fear of taking my own life or making those bad decisions, it was not there. It really wasn't. That stuff went out the window when my mom passed away after my son. And I'm like, well, I'm alone anyway, right? Why does it really matter? It doesn't really matter. I can't keep going on like this, right? Because I was in a place of just immense pain, you know, because
It's
I had,
hard to see past that immediate moment
yes,
when you are
yes.
so deeply in that pain.
Well, it's so deep. That pain is deep. It's embedded. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not like, you get cut and you can, stitch it up or put a band-aid on and you keep it moving, right? But I also related my grief to that as well. And the connection. And you're right, a lot of it was curiosity because I wanted to see where, I wanted to understand it for the most part because I had never experienced it. No one ever taught me that it was okay to not be okay. I've been a fighter my whole entire life. So my first instinct when things like this happen is I have to knuckle up. But this time I had no one to fight.
That was
And
an
that was
internal battle.
right. It became an internal battle. And I didn't understand that. So it was a long, hard road of being a fly on the wall for the most part. Yes, I was learning through my grief, but I was paying attention to people as well because I didn't know too many people had lost a child. So when I lost my son, I went, wow, what are people, judgmental? I'm judging myself. What are people going to think about me, right? They're going to think I'm a horrible parent and all of these things. So I beat myself up pretty good. But then I showed up at church just because I was mad. So I think most of it was spite. I was like, no, you're not going to beat me. You're not going to do it. So I ended up showing up just because I was mad. And that's when there was a guy that was around me that had lost his son some years prior. And so when he walked up to me, I was so angry. He was like, hey, can I talk to you? I was like, for what? He was like, I got to tell you something. Then he went, well, I'm sorry that you lost your son and everything. And when he did that, I was like, I don't want to talk to you no more. I just don't want to do it. So he tricked me. He invited me over for a steak to a barbecue. And he knew I wasn't going to pass that down. He's a good friend of mine, right? But I wanted to apologize to him. Yeah. And I ended up going over. And that's when he revealed to me. And I realized that there was other men walking around me in similar situations, right? And so when I started realizing who they were, I just watched them because it seemed like they were living everyday lives, right? Married and things like that. I'm like, how do you get back past this right here? But then also notice that there were some things that they were doing as far as coping that other people didn't know, right? And so I started paying attention to it, and I was going, oh. So when I got to a point where I was done with life, I started having flashbacks of watching these other guys walk through, and some of them did commit suicide. And I was curious about how they got there, but didn't realize I was there myself. So I could use it as a comparison, but eventually the decision had to be mine, right? And I almost didn't win that one. I really didn't. Now, speaking of the church, though, you also had a reconstruction in your faith. You mentioned that a little bit earlier. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think there's people out there that are in bad situations in church environments that don't know how to get out.
Yeah, there definitely are. Yes, so my husband and I both were raised in a high demand religion, and we really had dedicated our whole lives, and every major decision we'd ever made was based upon the teachings of the church. Our whole social circle was church members, and we dedicated thousands of dollars and thousands of hours to the church. And then one day in my studies, trying to increase my faith, I came across information about the founder of the church and some other church history that quickly made it evident that this was not started and founded by a God-fearing person. There's no way God would be involved in a 35-year-old marrying a 14-year-old or marrying other people, like women that were already married to other men, and hiding all of this from his wife. And there was lots and lots of problematic stuff that really did make it evident this is not divine. This is not holy. This is not from God. And it happened very quickly for me. I know a lot of times a faith deconstruction can happen over years for people as they slowly kind of come to realizations. I do feel like my background of doing some trauma healing and learning about predators made it easier for me to really see and identify. Like when I learned about the founders' behavior with women and like marrying a 14-year-old at like 35 or however old he was, and marrying other women that were already married, and marrying mothers and daughters, and marrying his stepdaughters, and like that quickly added up to a sexual predator,
right?
Because I knew how that worked. So I was like, I know this is sexual predatory behavior. This is not somebody who's a prophet of God. No. And so that made it a lot easier for me to be like, I'm out. Versus I know sometimes people discover some information and cognitive dissonance will slip in and they'll try and find ways to cling to their belief or justify the new things that they've learned. I was able to just be like, nope, I'm out. And so it was within a matter of just a couple of weeks for me finding the information to being totally and completely out and disassociating myself from the church, which isn't good in that it kind of shortened that transition period. But at the same time, like, wow, everything I had built my life upon just crumbled right out from underneath of me. Like that was the foundation for our entire life, the way we had based our marriage, the way we had based raising our children, the way we showed up in our community and our lives, all based on this. And it's not true. And so where does that leave us? It was very untethering to not have your moral compass and guidance there anymore, to not know what you believe. I remember there was one moment, it was probably one of the hardest, darkest moments where I was just sobbing, like just overwhelmed with the grief of losing everything. And just instinctually, I started to pray. And then I started crying even harder because I was like, who am I even praying for? I don't even know. I don't know if there is a God. I don't know if I can pray. I don't know what this is. How am I going to get through what is the biggest, hardest thing I've ever had to do without the tools that have helped me get through all of the big, hard things that I've always had to get through? And there was a voice I just heard that if there's not a God now, then there wasn't then. If it's not true now, it wasn't then. And you still got through all of those hard times. That means that whatever it is within you. And you have the capacity to make it through this, even if it's with different names than what you gave it before. And so I just clung to that. I just clung to knowing, okay, I survived before, I can survive again. Because there was definitely that feeling of it would be easier if I just died, if I just wasn't here anymore, than to have to rebuild all this, to have to figure this out, to have to disappoint everybody in my life who expects that I live this way and follow this religion. Like there was that moment where it felt like it would just be easier to just not be here anymore. And so to have that hope of knowing I made it through before, through all of these hard things, I can make it through again. I have the tools. Maybe I just need to call them different things, but they are there. And so then I slowly began the process of reconstructing and redefining my life and rediscovering who I was without the expectations of who I was supposed to be. And just really figuring out, who am I when I don't have to be Terina, who is only expected to be a wife and a mom? What do I get to be when that's not the only most important thing for me to do with my life?
That is truly amazing, man. That is truly amazing. And what are some of the highlights that you remember throughout your journey, the aha moments? Because you've gone through a lot, and I can just only imagine, the transition of when everything started clicking, and you're going, "Is this no? This can't be what this is." Because I know a lot of people like myself. No, so I'm not gonna say like myself. I can't put everybody in that category. But I know there's with myself, it was the validation going around other people, because again, I thought I was going crazy, right? And I've always had a problem with religion, so it was like I don't understand, and so I get it. I used to get in arguments with people all the time, like, you do realize this makes no sense, right? And I was like, look, I get it. You do what works for you. I said, but for the most part, I said, the religion I can't get behind, because there's too many contradictions. On one hand, you're saying that, Jesus came to abolish religion. In the same sense, you cling to the religion. And they go, well, I'm a Christian. I was like, define Christian. It's not a religion. It
No.
means that you're a Christ follower, not a religion. So how did you get a religion out of this? Right? And it's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Make it make sense, please. The math ain't math then.
Yeah.
So I
It may
developed.
be a little controversial, but I feel that religion is man's way of trying to control
Yes,
and box up spirituality
right.
and connection to God and the divine, which is very personal. It's
Thank you.
very
Thank you.
intimate.
I was getting to that right there. You just took, I couldn't say that any better because I do believe that. I'm a very spiritual individual. And
Yes.
I believe more and more people that I talk to that get into the work of doing grief and helping others heal, we all have that same similarity across the board, which makes our journeys that much more intimate, spiritually intimate, right? Because it's you go through these stages, at least for me, and you please chime in if I'm wrong, or you want to add something to it, by all means. But it's like you redefine yourself, right? After you've fallen apart, the journey takes you there, and it begins to fill you in with these different things. Now, most of these things may not stay with you along the way. I think some of them are temporary, but the ones that stick with us are what's already in us, right? That's spiritual, our connection to it, to sit with our grief, things like that. Our grief is the memories. The memories are our teachers, and we dissect those things in order to help ourselves, right? So it's selfish, very, very selfish. Your mental health is at stake. I know mine was. Being crazy, talking to I'm not going to say that. I didn't talk to myself. Anybody listen? I didn't talk to myself. Maybe a little. But
I think talking to yourself can be really helpful,
this is true, depending on the conversation and who wins.
depending on which voice you're allowing to speak.
Yeah, no, mine's don't care. Mine's don't care at all. It doesn't care at all. It's like, hey, this way, like, no, no. And then after a while, it teases me and taunts me with cookies and ice cream. So, you know.
It's funny. But yes, speaking to the point you brought up earlier, I do feel like one of the most healing things coming out of that was finding community with people who had left the same religion. And so they completely understood the pain and the anguish of losing that. They understood how you feel like an idiot when you don't know how to do things that adults know how to do because those things weren't allowed. They understand what it's like to have to relearn boundaries because you were never, not even relearn, but just learn about boundaries because you were always taught to put everybody and everything else and God and the church and the community before yourself. So it's so powerful to sit belly to belly with people and share our stories and have that vulnerable conversation that connects us. That's healing in so many ways. It's validating and it helps us to release shame. Brene Brown has taught us about the relationship between secrecy, silence, and shame. And that when we can speak with each other, it helps release that shame that's around those different. Finding people who can empathize is incredibly validating and healing.
That's very, very true. How can people find you?
So my website is terinamaldonado.com, and that's probably the best place to go to. From there, you can find links to my social media. I like to have fun on social media and just put out some good tips and inspiration and be a little bit silly sometimes. So if you're on social media, you can follow me and have a little fun there.
All right. Facebook. I know we met off of LinkedIn. So I know you're up there.
I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not as active there, but I am there. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I even occasionally throw some stuff up on YouTube.
Nice. Are you on TikTok?
Yes, I'm on TikTok.
Awesome. So you're gonna have to give me all your links because I'm gonna go find you because I'll be on TikTok. They got too many filters on TikTok. I get in trouble. Really do. I like to have fun too. Same thing. And if you had any words to tell someone out there today, what would you tell them?
That um, you don't have to believe people when they tell you that grief goes away. I don't know that that's true. There's always going to be a little bit of grief around the losses that we've had in our life. But what happens is your capacity to manage and hold that grief grows, and your heart grows bigger than the hole. And so just hold on and know that there's hope. And if you're feeling hopeless, or before you get to that hopeless space, find somebody, anybody who you can reach out to and connect with. And if you feel like you're feeling hopeless because you don't have anybody in your life, find a life coach, find a therapist, find a counselor, find somebody. Reach out to a hotline. There's somebody there for you.
It's very, very nice. We're going to have wrap this on up. To the audience out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Got your pens out because, man, she's amazing. Love talking with her. I can talk forever with her, but you guys will see her again. And to those out there that are struggling, look her up, please. She's going to get you put on the right track. And for the rest of us, thank you for tuning in. You guys keep your head up until next time. Love you. Roman, it's in here somewhere. Oh, no, it's up here. It moved.